Part 44. Bai Xuelan had a quarrel with his lover because of his jealousy. Xuan Huaifeng was coaxed by Bai Xuelan so that he lost his head for a while. And he turned the clouds and rain in the car for the first time, thinking it was a one-off event. Unexpectedly, Bai Xuelan didn't have this plan to stop at it. Now that he entered the alley, he had to do it once and have to do it again. Because I have been holding back for the past 2 days, I have been holding back the fire. Once the ban was lifted, it was surprisingly strong. And it took a long time. After doing it a few times in a row, Xuan Huaifeng was pulled out from the middle until the flesh and bones were all broken. Finally, seeing that Xuan Huaifeng was as soft as mud, he didn't even have the strength to pant and groan, and the 2 black eyes were full of begging for mercy. And Bai Xuelan felt distressed and had to stop. It was already a little late at this time. Bai Xuelan knew that Xuan Huaifeng was completely powerless and wanted to go to Fengshan's villa first tonight, so he asked the cooker to cook something to eat in the villa, and eat and sleep early, so that Xuan Huaifeng could rest. As for the cabbage, you can eat it tomorrow. After discussing with Xuan Huaifeng refused. It's not that Xuan Huaifeng is greedy and has to eat cabbage. He thought that he and Bai Xuelan had been in the car for so long, the driver and guards were waiting outside, and he probably guessed what was going on. If you change your mind temporarily and go directly to the villa, it will be difficult to live with your face. Maybe someone was whispering behind his back, doing that kind of blush on the way. So that he didn't even have the strength to eat. So, keep going. Bai Xuelan knew what he was thinking, and laughed secretly that he didn't have 300 taels of silver here. But felt that this shy personality was very cute, so he followed him. They found a clear spring at the foot of a nearby mountain, and the 2 of them washed it casually. Bai Xuelan was socializing a lot, and there were always clothes to change in the car. At this time, he just took out 2 sets of casual foreign clothes and trousers, and changed into one with Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng was about the same height as him. The pants were suitable, but the chest and back were not as thick as Bai Xuelan. And the top was a little wider, but it was not a big problem. After everything was done, I asked the driver to drive to the Fengshan restaurant. When we arrived, it happened to be the time when the general guests had finished eating and paid, and there were many vacancies. Bai Xuelan asked Xuan Huaifeng where he wanted to sit. Xuan Huaifeng said, "This is on the mountain, the air is very fresh, let's not sit in the room, let's sit on the terrace, and you can watch the moon." Waiter led them to a large terrace, on which was placed an exquisite long-shaped small table with a brass candlestick in Western style and a long-necked crystal vase with a red rose in bud. There is a 2-seater soft sofa on each side, which is beautiful and comfortable. Xuan Huaifeng liked it when he saw it, and said with a smile, "It's very good here." He was very tired by Bai Xuelan, and his legs were weak. Just as Bai Xuelan was about to sit down, Xuan Huaifeng was very alert and immediately stopped him and said, "What are you doing?" Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "This is a double seat." Xuan Huaifeng said, "No, how can 2 people eat? Squeeze a sofa, the one opposite is empty? You sit on the opposite one. I don't want to squeeze with you." Pointing to the sofa opposite the table, Bai Xuelan winked at him, and said, "I will shrink my body so that I won't squeeze you. This way, we can watch the moon together." Xuan Huaifeng knew that it was not enough for Bai Xuelan to live and die just now. Touched, "I don't know what happened. That being the case, of course it is safer to sit apart." Xuan Huaifeng sighed. "You can't see the moon when you sit across from it. The moon is in the sky. Let's stop arguing about places. Let's eat something quickly. I'm starving." Bai Xuelan was afraid of being delayed, and really hungry for him, so I had to give up and sit across from Xuan Huaifeng. The 2 ordered a meal. First, the appetizer, hot soup, and small bread were delivered. They ate at will, chatting and waiting for the big dishes to come. Bai Xuelan asked, I saw you watching Gone with the Wind last time. Have you finished it? Xuan Huaifeng nodded. I finished reading it, but I read it in a hurry, and I swallowed it whole. When it comes to details, it is a good book. Bai Xuelan said. You will never swallow a book when you read it. Since it is a good book, there must be some experience. Why not tell me so that I can also gain knowledge? He put one hand on the table, supported his head, and smiled gracefully. His dark eyes were fixed on Xuan Huaifeng's face, as if to see something interesting in his expression. Xuan Huaifeng knew that he wanted to tempt him to talk about romantic things. But because he knew, he became embarrassed and said, pretending to be confused, the heroine is in troubled times, but she is very tenacious. My experience is that both men and women are also well. It's interesting to always live on your own. Bai Xuelan asked, then do you prefer Reed, or Hao Shili? Xuan Huaifeng was startled, and went around in a circle to answer. If only Reed would not be so aggressive, I think Scarlet will be nicer to him. As soon as these words came out, Bai Xuelan laughed. At first it was a smile, but then it seemed uncontrollable. Grinning but couldn't close it, covering his eyes with his palms, looking down at the tablecloth, smiling until his shoulders trembled slightly, as if it was a real joy. It's like something. Xuan Huaifeng was embarrassed, patted the table and said, be calm, others think you are crazy. Stop laughing, your big dish is here. Sure enough, waiter came over with a big dish from a distance. Put it on the table, lift the lid, and spew out the aroma of the hot sauce. The steak is still making noises in the thin layer of sauce. Bai Xuelan asked waiter, what about the lamb chops at this location? Waiter said, it's being made, and I'll send it to you when it's done. Bai Xuelan took out a $10 bill and handed it to him. He ordered, tell them to hurry up, my friend is starving. Waiter got the money, and hurriedly agreed to go to the kitchen to rush. Bai Xuelan asked Xuan Huaifeng, the lamb chops are not ready. Do you want to eat steak? Xuan Huaifeng said, I have eaten, what do you do? Besides, when the lamb chops come, I can't finish it and waste it. Just wait, Bai Xuelan smiled and said. It's not worth anything. You don't have enough to eat, so I'll order another one. You're afraid that the lamb chops won't go to waste, so I can help you eat it. I'm a big eater. He took a piece of steak, crossed the table with his hand, and brought it to Xuan Huaifeng's mouth with a fork. Hurry up and take a bite. A table of guests, no longer arguing with Bai Xuelan, obediently opened his mouth and bit. Bai Xuelan watched with interest as he chewed a piece gently, and then cut another piece to feed him. Xuan Huaifeng said, eat. You're hungry too. Bai Xuelan said, okay, you take one bite, I take one bite, it's fun. He ate a piece and sent another piece to Xuan Huaifeng's mouth. Two hungry people, the more they eat, the more delicious they are. A piece of steak, so you come and go and eat most of it in an instant. Later, waiter brought the freshly made lamb chops and placed them in front of Xuan Huaifeng. Bai Xuelan leaned over to take a look. He was also full of color, fragrance, and mouthwater. He said, give me a few sips, too. He opened his mouth wide and waited like a baby bird. Xuan Huaifeng ate his steak and was embarrassed to refuse, so he cut a piece and sent it to Bai Xuelan's mouth. Bai Xuelan was like eating old honey, boasted that it was delicious, and begged for a few more pieces. Xuan Huaifeng had already fed one piece, and he didn't care about feeding the second piece. He simply cut one piece for Bai Xuelan and another piece for himself as he did just now. Bai Xuelan was not idle either, or gave the steak in front of him one bite at a time. Lin Qijun found it on the terrace, and when he looked up, he saw the two sitting across the table facing each other, talking and laughing, feeding each other beef and lamb chops. Like honey mixed with oil, so blood rushed to his head with anger, and he almost fell over. He stood there for a while as if in a dream, then walked over and said with a forced smile, "Xuelan Huaifeng, it turns out that you are eating here too. It's a coincidence." Xuan Huaifeng suddenly heard his voice and shook his hand. The lamb chops were almost brought to Bai Xuelan's nose. And he quickly withdrew, saying, "Ah, it's Qijun. Are you eating here too?" I thought to myself, how could this frivolous act be seen by this person? Bai Xuelan's attitude was very relaxed. He raised his head and smiled and looked at Lin Qijun, and asked, "Have you eaten it, or just came here?" Lin Qijun said, "Although I have eaten it, I really want to eat another jelly. I just ate it. I ordered one, and it was delicious, but I think one is not enough. I don't know if you are willing to invite this guest?" Bai Xuelan laughed and said, "If I would not even treat a jelly, I would be too stingy. Please take a seat, please take a seat." Lin Qijun was about to sit next to Xuan Huaifeng when Bai Xuelan stood up abruptly, gave up his seat, made a standard and attentive gesture, and said with a smile, "You are a guest? This spacious position. Come, come, please take your seat." He invited Lin Qijun to sit down, and he and Xuan Huaifeng sat on a two-seater sofa, facing Lin Qijun. Xuan Huaifeng was worried that Lin Qijun would sit next to him. Seeing Bai Xuelan's cleverness, he breathed a sigh of relief, but thinking about it in depth, it was as if Lin Qijun admitted his relationship with Bai Xuelan in front of him. Feeling a little embarrassed again, he lowered his eyes and poked the food in the plate with a silver fork, but didn't say much. Bai Xuelan called waiter over and asked him to show Lin Qijun the menu. Lin Qijun said, "Don't look at it. It's just jelly. Order a yellow peach-flavored one." Bai Xuelan turned to Xuan Huaifeng and asked, "Aren't you clamoring for jelly today? Want to eat it? What kind of flavor? Let's call it together." Before Xuan Huaifeng said anything, Lin Qijun said, "Huaifeng also likes the taste of yellow peach." Bai Xuelan asked Xuan Huaifeng, "Really? Want the taste of yellow peach? Hold on, I can't eat the jelly anymore, you can get me a cup of hot coffee." Bai Xuelan asked waiter to write them down one by one, and ordered a little cream cake for himself. While waiting for dessert, the three of them chatted casually. Bai Xuelan asked Lin Qijun, "How has your business been recently? Is it all going well?" Lin Qijun said, "It's always like this. Anyway, it's good to follow the hobbies of the rich. Now the rich wives and young ladies. We love small Western jewelry very much. And there are more and more people who perm their hair. When they perm their hair, they often need one or two foreign delicate clips to complement the beauty of the perm. Long gloves with lace. And various laces with complicated styles are also in fashion, and many people buy them." Bai Xuelan smiled. Now you look like a big boss. And the whole business experience is a complete set of business." Lin Qijun said, "Strange, this is what you asked me, and I will answer you. If you don't ask, I won't tell you. Besides, I have something I want to ask you." Bai Xuelan said, "What's the matter?" Lin Qijun asked, "Is it possible that the customs will randomly check the cargo on the ship in the future?" Bai Xuelan said, "You heard the news too? Yes, there is such a measure to prevent those guys who make trouble in the name of legitimate business. I know you are not there. This is listed here. So doing this will not have any effect on you." Lin Qijun said, "I didn't carry anything on board, and I reported a lot of quantities, so I'm not afraid of your checking. But I heard that when the news came out, many bosses related to the import ship were anxious. Xuelan, since you became the chief of customs, you have offended a lot of people. I advise you to be careful. After all, it is difficult to cause public anger. It doesn't look good. Bai Xuelan listened, turned his face away, patted Xuan Huaifeng's shoulder lightly with his hand, and said, "How is it? I said this would offend people, but you don't believe it. Now even Qijun is worried. You still don't believe it. Don't believe me?" Lin Qijun heard it, and realized that this was Xuan Huaifeng's suggestion. Thinking about it carefully, I feel stupid again. I should have thought of it earlier. Isn't the word random a mathematical thing? It just so happened that Huaifeng was studying mathematics. He secretly regretted that he had mentioned this matter, but it seemed that he was going to have a hard time with Xuan Huaifeng. When Xuan Huaifeng was on business, he couldn't help but get serious and said, "A new measure will definitely hurt the interests of some people who do secret affairs. And of course some people will come out to oppose it. If you don't do anything that offends people, then customs what's the use for? If you're afraid, tell the outside world that these are my proposals, and whoever is not satisfied, let them deal with me." Do they also spend gold bars to ask someone to hit me in ambush? Even if they hit me, I'm not afraid of ambush. It's a big deal to die for the country. Bai Xuelan listened very happily. It's very true, but unfortunately there is no wine. Otherwise it is worth drinking 3 pots of wine with this rhetoric. But you sacrificed your life for the country. I definitely don't approve. He approached Xuan Huaifeng, lowered his voice, and said in a rustling voice, "Just die for me alone." Xuan Huaifeng was stunned, only to realize that he was actually, when he was talking lightly, his cheeks suddenly flushed. And in front of Lin Qijun, he couldn't say anything, so he turned his head suddenly and gave him a stern look. Bai Xuelan was stared at by him, and smiled even more proudly. Seeing Lin Qijun's eyes, the sour taste hit the tip of his nose. He wanted to rush over to pull Bai Xuelan away from Xuan Huaifeng and throw it out on the terrace. When the dessert came up, Lin Qijun looked at the yellow peach jelly and felt disgusting. He ate it 1 bite at a time, as if it was made of vinegar, so sour that his teeth were soft. But Bai Xuelan whispered to Xuan Huaifeng, "My cream cake is delicious. Would you like to try it? I'll give you a taste." Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help but glance at Lin Qijun, shook his head and said, "I won't eat it." To Xuan Huaifeng, this move was just to avoid embarrassment, but it seemed to Lin Qijun that he saw a ray of light in a desperate situation. And his heart was fierce. The ground jumped a few times, thinking excitedly that Huaifeng still had me in his heart. In front of Bai Xuelan, he couldn't do without Shu and Wei Shi. But he secretly looked at me like this, probably because he was afraid that I would feel sad when I saw their closeness. He would also worry about my sadness. But of course he never really abandoned me. This is like a white cloud flying into the hands of a bad guest. He is unwilling and can only accept it in vain. The current Xuan Huaifeng is more lovely and pitiful than that of Bai Yunfei. The current Bai Xuelan is naturally more hateful than ordinary villains. Young people trapped in emotional entanglements are always easily deceived by imagination. Lin Qijun hated it and felt that Huaifeng had betrayed and hurt himself. For a while, he saw Huaifeng sitting in front of him like a jade person, which seemed far away, as if within reach, and recalling the sweet intimacy of the past. I can't believe that he has become someone else's lover. Then blindly think in the direction you like, full of hope and expectation. Bai Xuelan began to see Lin Qijun's face turning pale, and thought he had defeated this rival so much that he could no longer stand up, but unexpectedly, Lin Qijun's eyes suddenly glowed again. He is a person who can observe the situation very well. He can understand what is going on at a glance, and he can't help but secretly feel a little dissatisfaction. On one side, he felt that Lin Qijun was stupid and disgusting, and he didn't know how to retreat quickly and give up his entanglement with Huaifeng. On the other side, he felt that Xuan Huaifeng was also wrong. You are cruel and unfeeling. And you acted close to me in front of Lin Qijun, and admitted the relationship to each other. Wouldn't it be very good? It won't make Lin Qijun think he still has hope. Don't you dare to admit to Lin Qijun that you like me? Or, you still have lingering affection for him, so you are so disconnected. Bai Xuelan's problem of worrying about gains and losses is often committed against Xuan Huaifeng. Once there is a bit of trouble, he can't help worrying and doubting himself. After the meal, the bill was settled, and they parted ways with Lin Qijun. Bai Xuelan was sulking, and unconsciously wanted to vent, so he took Xuan Huaifeng to the villa in Fengshan. And was obsessed with making up for the unsatisfactory part on the way. When Xuan Huaifeng and Lin Qijun met, it was inevitable that he remembered those young and innocent years in the past. Even though he no longer loves Lin Qijun, he still felt a little sour in his heart, and he couldn't tell what it was like. This kind of night may be dreamy. It would be good if you and Bai Xuelan could open the window, blow the evening breeze, and talk and laugh to relieve depression. Unexpectedly, just after entering the bedroom of the villa, Bai Xuelan not only did not express his thoughtfulness, but immediately made a lustful request, which made Xuan Huaifeng feel even more uncomfortable. I thought to myself, is there only a physical relationship between us? No matter the time or place, just think about it. Bai Xuelan leaned over and was pushed away by Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng said, "What's going on? Now it's like this again. I'm about to break my waist, and it looks like I've broken a few bones. Does it take people's lives?" What Bai Xuelan cares about most is Xuan Huaifeng. After joining Lin Qijun, his mind was active again. Physically, this kind of thing can be done in the car during the day. How could it become taboo after seeing Lin Qijun? The more he cared about his heart, the more hilarious his face became, and he said with a smile, "No, sooner or later either you will kill me, or I will kill you." Xuan Huaifeng said with a serious expression, "Don't talk about all this. It's disgusting. I never thought about killing you." Bai Xuelan said, "It's just a stubborn word. Why do you care?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "It's okay to say it once or twice. Like you, it takes a while. If you want to die in my hands, I will kill you for a while, and I will never leave your mouth. Is it me who is overbearing, or is it your intention?" Bai Xuelan smiled faintly and spit out two words, "Strange." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What's so strange?" Bai Xuelan said, "I wonder why you meet another man and turn your head to look at me, and you don't even let me make a joke. You can't pick out the thorns." Xuan Huaifeng couldn't stand his habit of laughing, and he was annoyed for a while, and he held it up with him, saying, "At least there are not so many unpleasant words in people's mouths, and people should behave well." Yes. Bai Xuelan couldn't hear him praise Lin Qijun the most. His face changed when he heard the words, and he stood up from the sofa. This action was very violent. Xuan Huaifeng was taken aback. His eyes swept away. He saw that both of his fists were clenched. And he asked angrily, "You can't say enough, do you want to hit someone?" Bai Xuelan gave him a vicious look. He stood at him for about 10 seconds, clenching his fists harder and harder. His knuckles almost turning white, but in the end, he suddenly loosened his fists and went out the door without saying a word. Xuan Huaifeng just wanted to ask, "Where are you going?" When the words reached the tip of his tongue, he suddenly shrank back. Seeing Bai Xuelan stepping out of the bedroom with heavy footsteps, knowing that he was leaving with anger, he was inexplicably more annoyed, and simply closed the bedroom door and locked it from the inside. Bai Xuelan was walking down the small stairs when he heard the door of the bedroom slam shut. And soon, there was a soft click inside. Knowing that Xuan Huaifeng had locked the door, a sullen and sour gas rushed to his forehead. He couldn't help but turn around suddenly, wanting to go back and kick the door to pieces. After taking 2 steps, he stopped again. He knows his temper, and when he gets angry, he doesn't know the severity. It doesn't matter if you kick the door, but what if you kick open the door and make a few noises when you enter? If you get anxious and actually hurt someone, what should you do? Although Huaifeng is tall, his body is not strong. How many times can he withstand him? Thinking like this, Bai Xuelan restrained himself abruptly. But walking away like this is extremely unwilling. This is his man, his villa, his bedroom, and actually shut him out of the room. Where has heaven's law gone? Bai Xuelan stood outside the door, his fists clenched and loosened and clenched. His teeth creaked. Damn equality. His grandma's love. This foreigner thing is to die for. Changed our old Chinese tradition. The head of the family, the husband is the guide of the wife. How happy. He was screaming in his heart. After all, Bai Xuelan still didn't lift his leg to kick the door. After standing for a long time, he was inevitably discouraged. He hurried down the stairs and found a bottle of wine in the Western bar in the living room. When I was about to pour it into my mouth, I suddenly remembered that I had promised to quit drinking. Startled, more full of anger, he raised his hand. Boom! Smashed the bottle on the floor, smashed glass and beaded wine. The 2 guards outside heard such a big commotion, and hurried in. They looked around and saw that the chief was actually throwing a wine bottle. From the look on the chief's face, they knew that he was losing his temper. And hurriedly shrank their necks and went back to the distance. Bai Xuelan stopped them and asked, "Where are the 2 sets of clothes that were changed from the car today?" One of the guards said, "I don't know, it's probably still in the car." Bai Xuelan said, "Go to the driver and call him. Open the door and bring Adjutant Xuan's uniform to show it to me." The guard asked, "What about the one you replaced?" Bai Xuelan said impatiently, "You can take whatever you want, so long-winded." "What are you doing?" The guard shrank his shoulders and hurried away. After a while, he took out the military uniform that Xuan Huaifeng wore that day. Bai Xuelan took it, waved his hand to send the guards away, flipped through his military uniform, touched his hand in his jacket pocket, and took out a small note. A phone number was written on the note, and below the phone number were 3 graceful and delicate characters, Shu Yanga. Bai Xuelan looked at it for a while. During the day, he could see that Xuan Huaifeng had something hidden in his pocket that he didn't want him to know. Could it be that people like Xuan Huaifeng can't forget the ecstasy Feng Yucheng? That's not guaranteed either. Of course. It is more comfortable to deal with a dusty woman who will flatter and flatter than to deal with a savage and domineering man like yourself. Moreover, when he was in love, didn't he frown and look like he was at a loss? Although it is not winter, the mountain wind is still cool. Swept in from the outside at night, the cool wind wiped the cool heart. And Bai Xuelan felt a chill up and down. He was not a sentimental person at first, but at this moment, he remembered that he had fought for so long, and that person didn't take himself seriously. A dignified young man who had returned from studying abroad, the head of customs, was even worse than a woman from Shu Yanga. Immediately disappointed, sitting on the sofa, I didn't even have the strength to sigh. I cried, and no pores in my body were stretched, or suffocating. Xuan Huaifeng didn't know what Bai Xuelan was thinking. He locked the door. He was only angry for a while, but after thinking about it, he also felt that he had gone too far. After taking a quick shower in the attached small bathroom, he sat in the bedroom and waited for Bai Xuelan to knock on the door. In Xuan Huaifeng's heart, he felt that sooner or later he would come to knock on the door. If Bai Xuelan knocked on the door, he would naturally have to open it for him. After all, they were all adults, so it was boring to make such a quarrel over trivial matters. unexpectedly, until midnight. There was no movement outside the door. The more this happened, the more Xuan Huaifeng knew that Bai Xuelan was getting angry, and the more sticky and uncomfortable he felt in his heart. Looking back, I was very unwilling. In the afternoon, there was already such a big fight. He sacrificed his life to accompany the gentleman. And he was not afraid of humiliating the meal when he was eating. Such accommodations are still not enough. Is this man going to be on his head for the rest of his life? As soon as Xuan Huaifeng thought so, he immediately dismissed the idea of opening the door and going down to see Bai Xuelan. Just froze on the bed. During the day, he was beaten up by Bai Xuelan. He was full, and he quarreled for no reason, making him even more tired. After sitting and waiting for more than 2 hours, his eyes could not help but stare. His body gradually leaned over. And he fell slightly on the mattress. I fell asleep involuntarily. When I heard the birds chirping in the mountains, I opened my eyes. And the faint white light outside the window came in through the half-curtained veil, and the wild birds croaked happily. It was already dawn. Xuan Huaifeng was stunned for a moment. Then sat up from the bed. Oops, he really locked Bai Xuelan outside the room all night. This large bedroom should belong to Bai Xuelan. It was really inappropriate to drive the original owner out of his temper. How do you say you fell asleep? I don't know if Bai Xuelan came to knock on the door. If I didn't hear it because I fell asleep, I'm afraid he would be even more angry. He just said that he was intentional. Xuan Huaifeng opened the door while feeling remorse. Going down the stairs. The tip of my nose smelled the smell of wine in the living room, and I saw a guard bowing his head, sweeping the broken glass of the wine bottle on the floor. Xuan Huaifeng asked the guard, "Have you seen the chief?" The guard said, "The chief drank a bowl of porridge and went up the mountain." Xuan Huaifeng was a little stunned, thought about it, and then asked, "Do you know where the chief slept last night?" The guard said, "He didn't sleep. He was there. After staying in the living room for one night, he even lost the boss's temper. We didn't dare to rest. This villa is different from the mansion, and there is no servant. I'm afraid he will call someone in the middle of the night. In case no one is there to serve, the chief is angry, but we are there. Look." With a wry smile, he pointed at the pile of glass in the dustpan with his hand. Xuan Huaifeng also guessed that Bai Xuelan had made a big fire in the living room. And after hearing what he said, he was even more certain. Conceived in mind. For these few words, he didn't know when he was going to get angry. If you use alcohol to relieve your worries, you will hurt your body even more. Xuan Huaifeng asked, "Did the chief drink last night?" The guard shook his head and said, "He didn't drink, but smashed a bottle." Xuan Huaifeng suddenly remembered what Bai Xuelan once said about quitting drinking, and he felt sad again. Waiting was never the way to go. So Xuan Huaifeng asked the chief of guards where he was going to climb the mountain. The guard was also confused and said, "I didn't follow. I watched the chief go out through the back door. The back door is facing a small hill. I guess where is it going?" Xuan Huaifeng went back to his room to wash up casually. He came over temporarily and didn't bring a change of clothes. He opened the closet and found Bai Xuelan's sportswear from a Japanese brand to wear. Going down to the living room, when I was about to go out the back door to look for it, Adjutant's son suddenly arrived. Xuan Huaifeng asked curiously, "Why did you come to Fengshan so early in the morning?" Adjutant's son said, "I came here to invite you all. While it's still early, go back to the mansion in the city and change into serious clothes. If you go, it's still okay. If you don't, the sky will fall." Xuan Huaifeng thought that something important had happened, and asked in surprise, "Is there any problem in official business?" Adjutant's son smiled and said, "You only remember official business, and forget about other communication. I told you last time that the government's official music party is going to be held. And you have to represent our General Administration of Customs to pull the Vatican bell. Well, why did you forget? You count the days. What day is today? Xuan Huaifeng thought about it carefully. Sure enough, not today. A few days ago, I was secretly thinking of not forgetting it, but unexpectedly. Things continued for several days. Yesterday, I started to work in the morning. At night, the steak and lamb chops kept making noise, and I had a quarrel with Bai Xuelan for no reason. Mind memorizing these boring things? After being mentioned by Adjutant's son, I felt embarrassed and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I really forgot. My memory is really bad. You came here early in the morning. If you remember this matter early, I persuaded the chief yesterday. Don't go out of the city." Adjutant's son had nothing to be unhappy about. Getting up in the morning, taking a sedan ride to Fengshan Mountain, breathing the soft and moist green air, it was a pleasure, and said with a smile, "Adjutant Zahn, you remember big things. I'll just remember these trivial things. By the way, what about the chief?" Xuan Huaifeng swept his eyes towards the small back door and said, "I heard that he went up the mountain early in the morning, and I was going to look for it." Adjutant's son is a familiar person in the mansion. He knew about his relationship with Bai Xuelan long ago. Seeing the indifferent expression on Xuan Huaifeng's face, he seemed to have something hidden in his heart, and now he understood that the two were probably quarreling again. Adjutant's son has always been very acquainted with this kind of thing. He never asked any further questions. He just pretended to be confused and said, "The chief is very interested. I heard that he loved sports when he was studying abroad, and a good body is the result of exercise." He raised his hand to look at the watch, and discussed with Xuan Huaifeng, "Adjutant Zahn, you are going to perform on stage today. Why don't you get in my car first and go back to the city to prepare? The Vatican bell is still in the mansion, you need to pick it up. Come on." In addition, before you go on stage, you always have to practice your hands twice, right? As for the chief, I will go up the mountain to find him. I guess he is only nearby and won't go too far. After finding the chief, I'll accompany him back to the city. If I'm in time, I'll meet you at the mansion. If I'm not in time, I'll meet you in the Great Hall. What do you think of this idea? Xuan Huaifeng originally thought that he would be a little embarrassed to find Bai Xuelan all over the mountains and plains. What's more, Bai Xuelan is angry again. Even if he finds it, he is not allowed to show his face and say something inappropriate. Wouldn't it be even more embarrassing if he took advantage of the situation to make other demands? It's better to wait for Adjutant's son to find Bai Xuelan. Everyone will meet in the city, and when you have time to say a few words, take advantage of the situation to apologize for shutting him out last night, and avoid the embarrassing scene. Xuan Huaifeng then said, "You are very thoughtful. In that case, I will go back to the city to prepare. If you find the chief, come back with him quickly." Adjutant's son said, "Don't worry." The two of them, sure enough, they acted separately. And Xuan Huaifeng immediately drove to the city in a car. Adjutant's son asked Song Ren to follow him with half of his guards. When the car that Xuan Huaifeng was sitting in left, Adjutant's son took action. Fearing that he would not be able to find it for a while, he called a guard to stay at the villa. "Go up the mountain road,